Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be chatting all about weddings being staged.
Yeah, are they staged or are they just random acts that we just are there to capture?
I mean, it just came up at a recent wedding of ours, and we just thought it would be a really interesting topic to talk about because I'm sure a lot of people will say that it is completely staged. And there are photographers who advertise their services as being very much like fly on the wall candid. And so we wanted to dive deep into what that is. So our wedding staged, can you just go through a wedding day without any kind of planning and staging, let's say? Let's find out.
Well, it really depends. I don't think so. At least not for our style. There could be other photographers that have different styles, videographers, and that's what they do is just kind of capture what happens on a day. But I think a lot of people that reach out to us and want to work with us love what we do and do the reveals with bridesmaids and gifts and first looks. And it's really hard to just not take over, and be able to control certain things. Because I'm just thinking about lighting, for example. Even if you have all those things and you let the bride just kind of decide when those things are happening, how do you position yourself in a good way so that your photos look good? Because if it's just in bad lighting, there's not really that much a photographer can do to capture it properly.
Well, the good old black and white is always the
I guess
solution
so.
here. But for us, I think it goes deeper than that, though, right? I also want to kind of bring us back and bring every person who's ever photographed or videographed a wedding and think about some of the first weddings that you captured, right? And think about what that was like. Was there even a timeline? Were things organized? Did things happen when they were perhaps telling you they should happen? And that's what brings me back, is to think about that, because the first few weddings I ever did, there were no real timelines of things. People just kind of showed up whenever. Things were late, dinner was late, or people were late, or things just were chaotic.
Yeah, but late is relevant because if there's no timeline, then how do you even know they're late to something?
Exactly.
Other than ceremony and reception.
Exactly. But that's what I mean. So that's probably why we are the way that we are now, where we want to have a very detailed timeline. We want to have the discussion with our couples ahead of time, or the planner ahead of time if we're working with a planner. We want to make sure that we have enough time to talk, to set up for things, or to make sure that, the important people are there early, let alone, if anything,
On time,
and let alone on time. And so I think we've kind of come full circle on that, because we know what it's like when you don't have those things.
Especially on the video side, I find I need to know. I already feel like I don't have enough time to do everything because of the setup time. And I think it all circles back to expectations as well, because if you're not clear about, on the video side, for example, I need 30 minutes to set up before ceremony. And if that's when they're doing their first look, or they planned an important event at that time,
or didn't plan one.
Yeah. Or at least they wanted to do something, even if it's ad hoc, just all right, we're going to do this now. And I'm well, I need to go and do that. So the timeline for me is kind of an expectation document.
Because you also
right?
don't want to miss it, right?
Yeah.
So you're torn. So you're like, okay, well, if I stay and capture this moment that's important, there's going to be a delay for the ceremony because I won't be ready. And what's happening is all the guests are watching you run around,
I know, right?
Try to set up, and they're wondering why the videographer is making
Delaying,
things late.
Right? There's nothing worse than the feeling of it's your fault that you're delaying the events of what's going on, because I've had that happen before and it's not a good feeling.
No.
I hate it.
No, we never want to be the reason that the couple is behind. I don't think I could sleep at night if I knew it was our fault. Is that weird to say that that's a big anxiety?
No, but then my mind goes to all the hair and makeup people that delay the whole day, and is that how they feel, or do they are just immune to it?
And we're not going to say all, okay?
No.
It is not all, but
I just did a whole weekend without Bethany, and it's and now we're gonna shoot together finally. and it's going to be nice.
For the next 2 weeks at least, we're together. So and
True,
then
till the
after-
24th, I think, is when we split up next. But let's hope hair and makeup is on time. But you're right. It all comes back to like, we don't want to be the reason why something is delayed on a wedding day, because it already feels like it's such a packed event that like I would feel bad that we couldn't do something because like we messed up.
Exactly.
Although we could just stay later at no charge because it was our fault or whatever. There's always ways around it, but sometimes you can't control it. Like the daylight goes away fast, especially later in the year.
Yeah. Like the way that we also set up like our timelines is that we want to try and make sure that we're maximizing the time that we do have.
I love
right?
being efficient on a wedding day.
Exactly. So our philosophy is we always kind of, say something in reality could only take 45 minutes. If everything goes smooth, there's no delays. We walk into a space and it's like clean and we're ready to go and everyone's just like on the ball. We can get through a lot of like prep or things like that pretty quickly. The delay comes when, somebody isn't pulling their weight. Say there's a wedding party member that's not on time, or they forgot something and they have to go back and get it, or, like there's always like a story or something like that happens, or we show up and like you said, hair and makeup is just not anywhere near done. And we try our best to have these conversations ahead of time with our couple so they know for us, like these are the pain points on a wedding day. The main one's definitely going to be, making sure hair and makeup is done on time and having some buffer room in there, making sure that all the people arrive on time. Like those are all the things, like even right down to telling when your parents need to be ready and dressed. Like if we need to have that conversation, we will, right?
Yeah. Make sure details are organized for us when we arrive.
And then the other thing is on the other side is it's like, okay, well, once the ceremony starts and, kind of when the ceremony starts, it's kind of out of our hand at that point, right? Like we're very much just fly on the wall trying to capture things, because that's really what we're there to do, is to capture the moments and capture how it evolved or unfolded that day. And then after that, it's kind of, again, back in our hands to us guiding the couple throughout the rest of the day. Okay, like you wanted to do this. This is what we talked about. You wanted to go spend time at cocktail hour. That was important. Or you wanted to do these family photos. That was important, right? Like those are the things that we're trying to manage and make sure that we do efficiently, so that way they get to, have hopefully a process that doesn't feel painful to them on the wedding day, where it's like, why is this very simple thing taking too long, right? Like why did dad take off after 3 photos? Because he saw somebody and he wanted to go say hi to them. And then like you kind of have to like get everybody on the same page about this, so that there's a lot less stress, mostly on the couple on the day of, right?
That's what I feel like. I know that we're talking about it being staged, and I feel like it's to your advantage if you're a client to have us do that, because I feel like if it's up to them, that's just additional stress on their day. And unless they have a day of coordinator or a planner, a lot of the times it's us to keep them like on schedule, because we're like, here's the list of expectations of all the events you want, and here's how we're going to get there.
Yeah. And
some of it is, we stage a lot of it, mostly because we want to deliver a good product in the end.
Well, we want a genuine reaction, right? Like if you haven't shown anybody your dress before, like nobody was at your appointments, nobody was at your trials, nothing, like fittings. So nobody's seen a photo of your dress before, and you really want to show everybody your dress for the first time. Well, if you just get dressed and people are walking in and out all the time and nobody knows that it's important that you reveal it, then it kind of defeats, like, why did you hide it this whole time? Why did you go through all that effort, right? Of wanting this special moment captured, of, maybe your grandma seeing it, and it's like you got a part of her dress, her dress from her wedding day, sewn into your dress. And like, there's all these like little details that can go into that moment that they've been, dreaming about and thinking about and, excited about, if that makes sense. And if, grandma just happens to walk in and she's kind of like not paying attention, and, you're like, hey, grandma. And she's like, hi, yeah, like just not really paying attention to what's going on. It ruins it, right? So we want to try and give them that genuine reaction that like, hey, grandma, like she's in her dress, she's ready to go. She was so excited to show you, You know what I mean? And then they get that real moment. So to me, it actually feels the opposite. It doesn't feel staged at all. To me, it feels like the opposite is true, is that they're getting like the real moment versus, sure, we had to set them up a certain way, but it was meant so that we could get the genuine reaction that like everybody was hoping for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and there isn't like, Kleenex boxes and garbage behind them just because they like walked in the room and there's an open door and you can see into the hallway and like that's the only angle you got because you didn't really know when it was going to happen. It just naturally happened and you're there just trying to capture it all and, oh, I got the wrong lens on and it's like, too bad.
Missed it, right? Missed it, right? Grandma's crying. And what if we didn't have those expectations, right? And the reason why I think about that is because when we first started, I'll never forget, I met with this couple and they hired us, we were newer and I'll never forget them, saying yes to us and things like that. And one of the things she said in our initial call was, or I think it was in person because I used to meet everybody in person in the beginning.
That's right.
And she said, my sister, her twin sister, doesn't have a photo of just her and her mom on her wedding day. And, she still talks about how she doesn't have this photo of just her and her mom. Not a single photo of her and her mom in there. And, she was obviously, they were super close with their mom and whatever, but the day just got away from them, right? So if we didn't have a plan and we didn't know that was important to you, not saying that you shouldn't know it's important for them to get a picture with the mom, but maybe, you just don't know, right? And then they get their photos back and obviously they love everything, but that one photo that they really wanted, they don't have. And that's what sticks with them forever. And I always tell couples that that's the type of thing that keeps me up at night because what if I miss something? I can't obviously guarantee I'm going to get everything. And I hope that everybody knows that I'm trying my very best to get as many things as I possibly can, but I am only human. And, I am dealing with, a variety of things that come and are thrown at us on a wedding day, such as, like you said, lighting or, like I don't have the right lens on or whatever. Like that can even happen with the perfect plan.
Yeah, or something gets delayed in the morning and then we're like rushing through everything and
we miss something.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough to, that's why we like need everything written down. It's so important that we have it because if it's not written down and the day is just flying by like that, it's really hard to be able to think about extra things.
Yeah, like did we get a picture of her with her mom? Like did we do that? Like, because... And that obviously sticks in my mind now.
That's funny that you remember that from so many years ago.
2016, I remember.
2016 is when they hired us, man.
Well, yeah, they got married in 2016, so they would have hired us in 2015.
A decade, babe.
I know.
Of thinking, I need to get a picture of this girl and her mom.
I know. But it sticks with me because a bride a couple years ago told me that I took photos of her, but she didn't have like her earrings and her bracelet and her... like her full look on, but they were still gorgeous photos, but she's like, I wish I kind of had my earrings and my bracelet and stuff on, but it was like, I was getting the moment in between her putting that on. And so she's like, but I really love this photo, but I wish I had everything on. So now I'm sure you've probably noticed, I just tell them to put it all on. I don't wait to like capture everything as they put it on because I want to make sure that all the photos that I'm getting, they have it on. If I want to pretend, have them play with their earring or, the bracelet or whatever, I'll do it. But it just made me think, like, what if other people thought that? Like, oh, I love this photo, but I don't have my earrings or I don't have my ring or, like there's all those little details.
There's always going to be something to look at and be like, oh, I wish this, I wish that.
Yeah, I bet you we should probably put out a poll for this.
Yeah,
what is that one thing that... somebody said to you and that now you do without a doubt at every single wedding? Do you have any that you can think of that you're like, I always get this?
There's definitely been in like the final edit of like, hey, can you show more of this, right?
Okay. So like everybody's
my mom, we're talking about moms here, but it was like, or we read letters at our first look or whatever it is. And I just like didn't include enough of that. And they just wanted like minor edits to it or, hey, you show a lot of like the groom's mom, but the bride's mom isn't really shown in the video as much as the other one. And to me, I'm not, keeping score of whose mom is what. I'm just more looking for moments, but it's important for them to have that balance. And so I can go in and change that. So I always try now to create more of a balance between what I show, all the different events, the speeches, I have always been on like show at least one part of every single person's speech, even if it's just cheers to you by somebody, because sometimes not every speech is worthwhile to put in an edit.
But you've been requested to have that before too. I remember back in the day, you had that request and you're like, how am I going to add this person literally said nothing. So,
which is tough, right? It's tough, but it's the same as you. It's like maybe you had a bunch of time to do like solo portraits of the bride before the jewelry, and then as soon as it was on, it was go, go, go with other events, and you just didn't get like a solo shot of her with all the stuff in it, and that's what it was. But it's just like sometimes you can't help it. It's just the day flies by the way it is, and sometimes I can't help myself to exclude a speech because there was nothing said, like it's
or
really
you just
tough.
like there's only so much space, right? In like a 5-minute highlight.
Yeah.
So, and I have to say like dad gave the most amazing, like speech or whatever, then it's hard to kind of fit everybody's in there, right? Or if because you've also had that where it's like everybody said a lot of great stuff.
I know. And it's tough to pick just like the cream of the crop of everything because it has different meaning to me. Like I'm not the couple. So what if this one thing that they said has like way good meaning to them, but I chose something else because I don't know, it was more like
you didn't
funny
know.
Or I didn't know that like inside joke or that moment meant so much more to them. So,
but back to it being staged, I mean, let's get into it. What it would be like if we didn't stage. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I can't even
imagine.
Like, how does somebody like get into a wedding day and they just show up? Like, has there been any, and I also think that too, I want to, not to say that maybe it does happen in the luxury space, but I don't know how much this would happen in a luxury space with a wedding planner who's, literally like timing everything down to the minute. I'm curious, like what your thoughts would be like. Do you think that this candid approach is more of a like lower budget thing, or do you find it's like kind of creeping into a luxury space? I mean, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this.
It's tough because it's like candid moments, because I think when they work like in the luxury space, a lot of them work with planners and coordinators, and I think it's their job to make everything go on time. So there's already an expectation to the couple that there's going to be somebody keeping an eye on the clock to make sure that everything happens. And then our job kind of becomes candid. We're not the one leading the day. We're not the one saying like, oh, in 5 minutes, you better get ready. They kind of know, or they have somebody else explaining that.
But not really. Like if you think about when we've worked with planners, are they beside us the entire day? I would say no. Like they're with us at dinner and like right before the ceremony, but they're not really with us at prep.
I mean, they rely on our expertise to be able to place them in the right space to capture the best moments, right? And that's kind of what we're talking about a little bit is like, make sure you like stand over here, like before this reveal or whatever, because we know that we can like from our angle, we can capture both or whatever it is. Like we have good lighting is hitting them where it's not too dark. They're not getting mixed light from like indoor lighting and outdoor lighting, whatever it is. And I think in any space has some value, like if I was getting married, I would love it if they're like, hey, your photo's gonna be 10 times better if you stand here. I'd be like, please, I will stand there,
Yeah. But I also think like, I don't know, I just thought for a second there, we do a lot of room reveals when we work with planners because obviously the couples invested a lot of money and time into, the decor and the space. And like, that's a really important part for them. Like, I was just thinking like, imagine if that wasn't like, if it wasn't done well, right? Like, we know that like the planner will have like their assistants who are taking videos and then we're taking videos and photos. And then maybe even the decorators are taking photos and videos. And a lot of that, we're always like, okay, we need everybody to be on this side and we need everyone to be out of the way. Like stop, pouring waters or whatever, right? Like we're very much like trying to make sure that we're getting like a very like quote unquote staged but clean shot of their genuine reaction, right?
I didn't even think about that when we follow them inside, and if like we're on both sides of the couple, we're just in each other's shots, and then there's like guys filling up waters and putting butter on the table.
But we
or
don't
whatever.
do that, right? Like we like literally are like everyone's like, are you ready?
No,
are you
but
good?
What if, right? Like you're trying to capture content for the planner, for the decorator or whatever, and it's like random staff members and we're in each other's way. True. I think that would happen a lot, actually, especially if you're doing a photo video. If it's just like we're just floating around, how do we even know? Like, would we even talk to each other about staging it, or is it like this because that takes some effort too, right? It's not just about the couple. It's like ourselves being in our own way.
Exactly, right? Because it's like you can't edit me out if I'm standing like in your shot, like right behind the couple, like or beside them, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think about that, and it's like how do teams, like obviously they have to have conversations and stuff, but you know how that's gone, right? Like you've worked with enough photographers or whatever where it's like even though you've had the conversation about where you're going to be and what you're going to do, like how many times does that change for you, right? Like how many times do they still like get in the way? And now during a ceremony, I think we've just gotten to a point when you know when you're working with a photographer who doesn't necessarily isn't me, basically, that you're just expect for them to walk in front of your cameras. And that's just kind of part of it, right? I know that sounds really horrible to say, but you just kind of have to let that go.
I used to get mad about that stuff when I was like, they don't listen. They're like, there's always ceremony and speeches are like, that is video time, don't get in the way because those are the things that I'm delivering and I need it to be really good. If they don't get that one photo from behind, who cares?
Yeah, but I mean, like, we have a strategic way of doing it, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's staged because, like, I know, like, kind of when the ceremony first starts, there's not really a lot of things that are important that are happening, and we're kind of getting more establishing shots, and that's usually when I will go behind them if I can, depending on the space, and I will try and get like a wide shot of like their view, right? Like, I love to do that.
Like if the officiant's talking, like, who really cares, about what's going on
because you could
around
them. Do an angle of like the crowd or
I can
whatever,
even take
right?
a later shot of the family and just like throw it on top of an edit and they don't know.
But you can't do it like during their vows, right? Like you can't do it when they're exchanging the rings,
Yeah, please don't go behind them when they're exchanging rings. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Like unless you're both going. Like that's another thing too. Like if they said, "Hey, I like to be on this side for the kiss or this side for the rings." If they said that to you, you could go with them.
Yeah, true.
We're trying to make our job easier too on the other side, which is the wedding day is one thing, but the after wedding homework is really where our job begins. And if it's 10 times harder because I constantly walked in front of your camera or stood in front of it and,
Or we just didn't have the right lighting because things were just happening on the fly and we didn't have time to prepare for it.
It's going to take 10 times
That's
longer.
The thing is like, we're kind of helping ourselves in the homework stage make it much easier for us to deliver a good product because we planned it before, we executed on the day of, and then we can take care of it afterwards. So, yeah, I'm down for staging it. There's definitely like after ceremony, there's like a bit of photos after that. Then once like grand entrance and like speeches, like you can't really well, actually I kind of do stage the speech, but in the sense of like, here's the podium and like, make sure that the mic is level so that, the light doesn't make this big dick shadow on your face essentially.
Well, yeah, like there's so many things, right? Like that go into it and like making sure they tell us before they go up to the podium. Like I know it's on stage, but you want to make sure that the couple's in the room. You want to make sure that the parents are in the room. Like these are all little things that like imagine, like I even ask now, I know this sounds silly, but like if there's somebody that really wants to be present for the cake cutting, because we kind of got to this stage now where people kind of like to do private ones because they don't want it to be like another thing where everybody crowds around them.
Usually it's like we need to save time. So it's just like, let's just
cut cake cut. Yeah. Like get it cut quickly. But now I'm like, okay, well, should we, is there someone that's important that wants to be here? And almost every single time I ask that, they're like, yes, my mom would like to be here for this.
Interesting.
So that's why I'm always like, okay, yes, we want to do it, but we need to find mom or whatever because they want to be there, part of it. And you already know how chaotic it is.
Or it's like a family member that made the cake and they want like their cousin to be there or whatever it is.
One thing I wanted to note, because I feel like not a lot of people understand that as photographers, we are very much capturing a lot of candid moments. And I even had this discussion actually with a couple that we shot their wedding last fall. And I was kind of explaining to them that, people kind of maybe think that we're too type A.
They put us like in a box.
They put us in a box that we're very organized, we're type A, and we like things to be a certain way because we want to anticipate all these moments, but we also want to make sure that we're not missing anything that's important to them, which to me sounds like perfect. Sounds like the perfect day, right? Like when you want to like walk away from this very expensive, very high emotional, high stress day, feeling like you got everything out of it that was important to you, or very close to it, right? Like, let's not say 100% because I don't want to start saying that, but that we got very, very close to you getting every single thing on your wish list for that day in terms of like moments captured, etc. Because that's really all that matters to us, right? Is capturing all of those important moments. However, when I talked to this couple, the first things out of their mouth was, you got so many candids though. Like, even though we staged, let's say, the day, you got all of the things that we wanted, right? But you also got so much more than that, because it's not just about those stage moments, it's about what's happening in between. And that's where we shine. Like, we're capturing obviously those important moments that we know we've talked about, that you've been looking forward to. Like, we give you all of that opportunity to say, like, what do you want captured, right? Like, that's part of working with us. But the flip side of it is that in between that, we are almost rudely taking photos. Like, I'm literally like having a conversation with you and looking the other way almost, and taking a photo, because our natural ability is to just like see a moment and capture it without even second guessing it, right? We're not like, oh, well, that's not important, we're not going to get that because it's not part of the list, right? Like, we're just genuinely looking for it and almost trying to, we actually kind of get disappointed if we miss it, right? Like, do you ever get that where you're like about to try and get something and you go to turn on your camera and it doesn't turn on fast enough, or my button doesn't click fast enough, or my flash doesn't turn on fast enough? Like, sometimes that, like, Luke always drives me crazy because he wants me to turn off my camera all the time to save batteries, because our cameras eat up a lot of batteries throughout the day. But I keep it on because I like to just be able to lift it up and take a photo right away, because sometimes that's how fast a moment happens. Is it's like I'm literally just walking from one place to another and it's like, oh, I see this thing, and I'll, and like, you literally have 3 seconds to capture it.
You don't whip that camera up and get it. And what bothers me sometimes too is like, I can get it, but because my camera's been pointing at the ground, like the auto white balance goes to like a green or a purple, and then you go and you shoot it, but it's all like the color is all weird because of that. You still get the moment, black and white.
No.
But that's another thing where like, yeah, you really have to anticipate a lot of the moments, and that comes with experience, I think, of, something's gonna go down here, you better be ready. That's what I like about the video side, is like, if I just keep filming and I just keep pointing it there, like, I'm not going to miss those in between moments.
But when you started, you didn't, right?
No,
were just
it was
taking
like, okay, done.
10 seconds.
And then you kind of forget about that. But I also work with a lot of photographers, and I see the difference between some that are kind of like there to do a job and some that are there to like really give it their all and capture stuff. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's even like, we love taking guest photos during cocktail hour.
Yeah.
Like, I shine there,
Yeah,
That's
good.
my job. I love it.
Yeah. And people love it. Like, we have people coming up to us saying how amazing we are because we do that. And it's like,
and
good.
We think it's like, that's
bare
just
minimum.
that's a requirement, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just love introducing ourselves and making sure that everyone gets a good photo. I always use a line, you got all dressed up
yeah.
and you got all nice, so why not?
It's not
get
every
a photo,
day you get
right?
to have like a professional photographer take a photo of you.
Correct.
Especially if they ain't got a ring on, like, that's some money there. Right?
Exactly. You're like future client, maybe,
And they remember that, right?
I think so too.
I was thinking about this today, where I was thinking, how many of our couples have referred us over the years, especially over the last 5 years, right? And how many couples, like, we just saw a client today who we shot her brother's wedding, and we're shooting her wedding this year, and we know obviously the brother's going to be there, and like, that brother has also referred us to two other weddings as well, right? And we have another one coming up in September, where like the week after, where again, we're shooting the brother's wedding as well. We shot like one of the other brothers, right? And we're going to get to see all those family members again. And like, even when I'm having conversations with the new client about, the past client's wedding, they're like, oh, I still remember you doing this and this and that. And it's just like, how do you remember that? But we made an impression on them years ago, and they still remember how that felt, right? So personally, like, once you're at the wedding day, and this is just my own thought process, like, obviously that client, you're going to go above and beyond, you're going to kill it on that day, but you really already won them. You've already won them, like, you already have them, you're already there. Your job now is to win everybody else that's there, win their most important friends and family over. And to be honest with you, that's potential income that's sitting on the table that you're leaving if you're not
And I
going
feel
above
like
and beyond.
that's almost the job of like your second shooter, because they're going to interact a lot with guests.
Yeah.
Because obviously, as a main photographer, you're going to be with the couple a lot of the time.
Depending, right? Depending on the second shooter, right? We've seen it tons of times where second photographers stand beside the photographer all the time, right?
Yeah, well, that just means they're not doing their job.
I know.
But us, with like, we really value that part of it. And by the way, we still stage guest photos.
Yes.
Just FYI.
Because we want to make sure they're good. There's no
Yeah.
point in taking their photo if their bra strap's hanging out and the
Or they
lighting
got
is
like
terrible.
massive things in their pockets.
Exactly. Right. Or the lighting is bad. It's got like, I got like a leaf shadow on their face, right?
And they will give you a hard time. I get it all the time. Oh, I got to take off my shades. Yeah. Oh, like I got to empty my pockets.
Yeah, but when they see that photo,
I think, yeah, I think it all comes back when they see the photo. But at the time, they can really give you a hard time. Sometimes I'm like, oh, like, do you want to take your shades off? And they're like, no. And then I'm like, I wasn't really asking, you know?
wasn't really an option, actually.
I always ask that, oh, do you want to take the things out of your pockets? They're like, no. I'm like, it's more like I was saying, take the things out of your pockets.
And then it's a funny moment, right? And then it's memorable.
Exactly.
And then I sometimes get asked if I work for TSA because I basically make you take everything out.
And I'm like, oh, do it with your top button. And they're like, oh, geez, you know? And I'm like, oh, you have a hair elastic here or whatever it is. And they always say, wow, you like,
care.
so like
you care.
Attention to detail, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, that's my job.
Well, it also is one of those things that, right, I have a couple of those clearly that stick in my mind forever. And definitely a hair elastic is a trigger for me because I had to edit it out. Back in the day when they didn't have AI, okay?
Is it staged if you just tell them to like take off their...
Probably. I don't know. That's what I mean. I think the stage line is blurred because how much of it do you really want it to be staged? To me, unstaged is chaotic. Equals chaos. Like let's just quote that. Unstaged equals chaos, in my opinion.
I don't know if we've ever done a fully like unstaged wedding.
No, we never will.
No,
we never will. Because we couldn't handle it.
If you're that type of client, don't book us.
Sometimes if I don't give you enough detail, sometimes when I do a timeline meeting with someone, even you give me a hard time that there's not enough for you to like know what to do anymore.
Yeah, because I'll arrive and I'll be like,
what's missing?
Yeah, what's going on? I don't know.
But I just take care of everything anyways. So
yeah, but not if we're like splitting up for prep and then you're like, well, you just got to get there and leave. What do you mean? Like, what's going on?
But you know.
But what do they want? That's the thing is like, it's about what do they want? I don't want to show up and then they like, we leave and they're like, oh shit, we didn't do that thing. And it's like, what thing? You didn't tell me what you wanted, So how am I supposed to know?
Insert the Ryan Gosling little...
what do you want?
What do you want? What do you want? It's not that simple. What do you want?
I know. I think about that a lot.
Exactly. Because it's so important that we don't get another shot. And that's, at the end of this, whether you think they're staged or not, we get one shot at this.
One opportunity.
And... a little Eminem, but we get one shot, so we want to make sure that it's the best, and this is how we know how to do that best. And if you're hiring a professional, I would much rather hire somebody who wants to stage the day and make sure that they get everything that I really want, than have somebody say, "Don't worry, I'll just be a fly on the wall and I'll get it." What if they don't?
True.
Right? I don't know if I could sleep at night if I was like really looking forward to getting something. And then, but again, maybe those clients are just like okay with whatever, right? Maybe they're just really okay with not getting all of these things. Their expectations are really low. But I'm telling you, I think that's the wrong way.
At our price point, I don't think we have anyone that has low expectations that wants to hire us, right? Like the thing is we've like built a reputation on having these expectations and having clients that rely on us to do all these things, and I like it. Like it brings me joy.
But it's what they're paying us for, right? The costs associated with this come with all of the experience that we bring, right? Where we know how to handle a situation if things literally go sideways. Like if an ambulance has to show up at your wedding, right? Like and you're trying to like, okay, calm down, like put a nice face on, like, let's just pretend nothing's happening. Like you have to be able to sort of handle that and approach those things and situations in a professional way that makes sure that everybody's like, okay, right? And that you're trying to make the most of the, like, oh, she's okay. Like she's actually fine, like.
It just made me think of like, okay, so let's say you're trying to unstage a wedding and it rains.
Yeah.
How are the bride and groom going to like know what to do in that situation to still get the photos or whatever that they want?
Yeah.
Like,
and how many times have we been in the middle of a ceremony and the couple will like look to us for guidance? Like if something's like they mess something up or something's going wrong or they don't know what to do next, especially if they don't have an officiant.
and a real officiant. They just have like a family member doing it.
And then they'll kind of be like, Bethany, and like look at me. And I'm like, put the
doing
rings on now. You know?
Say your vows.
like they literally depend on us. And I mean, or a planner, right? Like we've worked with lots of planners and those are their lifeline on a wedding day, as they should be, right? Like we are there beside them the entire day, and the planner is very much there beside them. And I'm sure even more so, when it's a photo video team that they don't work with often, right? They're just trying to ensure that everything happens that they expected, right? So anyways, final notes on staging or not staging. Are you team stage or are you team no stage?
I think if anyone's listened this far, they know where I stand. Especially on the video side, like it just takes so much planning to be able to capture everything that they need. And it's true that sometimes in a wedding timeline, I might miss things because I have to do that. But then at least it's been spoken about, like we've discussed it before the wedding day, and there isn't like disappointment.
And we know that we're not going to get everything 100%. We know that, like we already know, but we already can tell especially when there's couples that are like just have a lot of moving pieces, that it's going to be chaos for us, like it's going to be chaos. And
especially if there's like multiple locations to get to, like that's always the worst.
Stressful.
Yeah.
It's stressful on all of us. Like, okay, well, where do we park? What do we have to find parking? Okay, well, what if there is no parking and we have to find, like another route? And what if the family can't find it and they get lost? It's chaos. It really is. But anyways, we won't get into that. But yes, definitely team staged. We are team staged all the way. We'd love to know what you think though. Are you team staged or are you team not staged? Because I don't really know what else it would be called. Because I think if you are trying to get to the level that we're at, going stage is definitely the way to go. But don't forget that you are still very much capturing a lot of candid moments. Mm-hmm. But setting the expectation about, understanding what's important to them, I still think is very valid, regardless of if you're photojournalistic or candid or whatever. You should still be setting the expectation of like, okay, is there any important moments that you want to have captured?
Mm-hmm. At the very least,
so that we're not missing those, right? And then ensuring that there's enough time in between events, and that there's a moment or somebody who's going to take care of the timing of that. If you're not that person, because that's your style or that's the way you run your business, then you need to ensure that somebody else is going to do that, because then it's really going to create problems for you. And I think, that's really why a lot of photographers and videographers go this route, because they know this way on the flip side of things, once all the excitement and the, everything kind of hits home after the wedding blues, after the wedding, that it's good to go. So
the wedding blues,
it's a thing.
Really?
Yeah. So they get depressed after, right? Because it's kind of like a baby, all the leading up, you have the baby, and then, everyone wants to come see the baby and everything. And then after a month or two, people just they move on, right?
I guess so. And that's why you have the photos and videos.
I know.
Be able to relive all the glory.
Exactly. But the thing is some people just feel like, there was all this attention and all this like love and everything poured into them. And then it's just like, all right, now it's done. Now what? We go back to just normal life?
Boring.
No, we want this life, right? This is fun, or sort of fun, right?
I don't become famous then. People will care about you again.
So anyways, thanks so much for listening. See you next time. Bye.
and Bethany turning heads with their flash. Wedding photographers capturing love in a flash. Taking shots like paparazzi, they're a dynamic duo. Posing couples like models on their love they bestow. Shooting weddings, they got the perfect frame. Look behind the lens while Bethany brings the flame. Capturing every moment, they never miss a beat. Freezing time, making memories that are oh so sweet.